So, I'm an only child. I realize that for some of you who've heard me before, you're like, so much makes so much sense now. I totally get that. And so being an only child, anybody else an only child in the room? Yeah, all four of us. Yeah, yeah. It has its advantages, right? It also has its disadvantages, right? And I'll let you decide which is which. I had all of my parents' attention. There was no one else for them to worry about, think about, care about, spoil. And I never had to share my parents. In fact, I never just had to share anything at all, ever. So I never learned to share, which got a little weird later. I also was around adults more than anything else, so maybe the words that I used didn't always connect with my peers. I can remember being 8 years old, and a bunch of neighborhood kids were going sledding, and one kid was sledding down a hill, and I could clearly tell she was about to hit a parked car. So 8-year-old me was like, bail, abort, 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 bail, and she didn't do anything because she was like, that's not what 8-year-olds say when you're trying to, why would you not just say jump off or car? Yeah, I also really struggled sometimes. I didn't always recognize social cues. My mom actually, when I was little, would put me in front of a mirror, and she would say an emotion, and she would express it on her face. She said she did this to me to help me develop empathy, so I could recognize emotions in other people. But really, what it did is made it impossible for my face to hide what I'm thinking at all times. I also am just terrible at conflict. I think partly because I was an only child, because in my world, if I didn't like you, I went home, and you weren't there. As opposed to my husband, who's one of 4 in the Italian family that fought all the time and then had to sit down and figure out how to eat dinner together and laugh and still be just fine. That was absolutely foreign to me. Friendships were just weird for me. I didn't always know how to navigate them. Conflict was weird, friendships were awkward. But I would grow up and I would learn that actually isn't just an only child thing, is it? We all struggle to connect to different points for different reasons and in different seasons of our lives. So I want to start our time together this morning with asking you a question. How many friends do you have? Think about it real quick. How many close friends do you have? How many, just associations? How many friends do you have? Before social media could actually literally let you know how many friends you had, how many followers you have, I think we kind of always assumed you could kind of always tell who had a lot of friends, who didn't, maybe who was popular, who wasn't, or at least I think we assumed we could tell. I'm not sure how accurate we were. We actually tested this theory. A group of friends and I went downtown for dinner, and we had a conversation about our high school selves. We all met in our 40s, and we sat and we talked about, would we have been friends with our high school selves? Would we have liked each other? What was your high school self like? How different are you? And we for sure wouldn't have been friends, by the way, in high school. But I decided that I wanted to get our server in on the game. Yeah, I'm that person. So I asked him, I said, hey, would you rank us according to who you think would have been the most popular in high school down to the least popular? Just take a stab. And I said, yeah, anyone who works at a restaurant right now is please never visit my restaurant. Please never. But I did tell him, I said, hey, your tip is not dependent upon accuracy. It's totally dependent upon how much it makes us laugh. And it cracked me up. Because I was the one that asked the question, he had ranked me in the top 1 or 2, which for sure I was the bottom of the 6 of us. I would absolutely not have been the most popular in high school. See, friendships are just weird. And they didn't stop getting weird after high school, did they? In fact, I think they just got a little weirder, maybe even a little more difficult, because as we grow up, we think we're not supposed to have any trouble connecting anymore. We're supposed to easily fit into community, but we just don't always. We're launching a new series this morning called Connect For. It's just a way we want to look with you about how we can be for Austin and for each other. Now, our title is kind of a play on words, right? Because we want to be for, F-O-R-U, for our community. We're going to look over this next 4 weeks, F-O-U-R, at the ways that we can do that. We believe we're actually collectively better at being for the world together. And so we believe that the church has been known for way too long for what it's against. And we want to be known what we're for, that we're for people, for the next generation, and for our community. So if you're brand new here, this is a perfect series for you to step into, especially if you're looking at just curious about what we do, why we do it, how we do it. And if you've been here for a while and you just haven't really gone beyond Sunday and you're curious about a next step, this whole series is going to be so great for you. Every single week, we're actually going to practically talk about what it looks like to be for each other and for our community together. And at the end of every message in this 4 weeks, we're actually going to take a step together because we believe collectively we can do more together. Now, so just a heads up, but before we do that, I do want to have a conversation. I want to talk a little bit about friendships. Now, about 10, 15 years ago, I started doing this thing in my friendship circles. People would, like, when I can tell, like, a circle's getting, like, gelling and it's, like, tight and we're, like, a good group of friends, and you can feel it, and people start saying things like, oh, man, I just love our friendship. We're going to be friends forever, and they start, like, planning, like, trips down the road or maybe talking about, like, retiring on a commune or whatever. You know, when people get really close, how they do. I would just say to them, this is so great, totally enjoying this. It'll probably last 5 to 7 years. And people would be like, wait, what? No, Jen, we're going to be friends forever. No. We're probably going to be friends 5 to 7 years. And I would remind them that as the years would, like, roll on. They would be slightly offended, slightly confused, and I would say, look, this isn't about you. It's not about me. It's just data. It's just reality. I read about this idea, this time frame idea for friendships in a book called Captivating many years ago, written by Stacey Eldridge. And when in this chapter, when she starts to talk about that, it made me curious, so I started to actually pay attention to some studies and kind of dig a little bit of digging. So in 2014, there was a study done on just like cell phone data and the way that we engage people on our smartphones. And it just highlighted that we cycle through, based on the way that we engage on our phones, 30 to 50 friends. We just kind of have that many in communication, and some people step out of that, and some people loop back in. But 4 to 5 remain what we would call close contacts, people that you talk to frequently, regularly, in a rhythmic way. And this study showed that 50% of friendships are replaced every 7 years. Now, then there was one done in 2009 by Oxford. They actually just studied friendships over like a lifetime and just kind of like kept track of how people moved in friendship circles throughout the different phases of life. And they noted that friendship changed every 5 to 7 years. I could keep going with study after study, but I just actually want you to sit with this for a second. Because I read that in that chapter, and then I can look at these studies, but even just in my own life, think about your friendships. They say that you're going to have 3 to 5 lifelong friends. Usually one that's kind of deposited from each major phase of your life. Is that true for you? Think about it. Then they say that you're going to have different groups of friends for different seasons. Maybe things change. Maybe you move away for college, or you move for a job and your circles shift, or maybe you're the first one in your group to have kids and that changes the dynamic, or you're the first one in your group to be an empty nester and that changes the dynamic. But think about it for a second. Have your friendships changed over the years? Are things different now? I think for most of us, if I were to survey this room, which by the way includes the foyer and the lobby, by the way, you are a part of this room. If I were to survey us, if I was to talk to us, I think we would find that this is normal. Now, I have no doubt there would always be exceptions. There is someone in this room that has a gazillion friends. Don't raise your hand right now, it's too much. And there's also someone in this room that probably doesn't feel like they have any friends. That actually would have probably been me my first couple of years moving here to Austin. And I have no doubt there is someone in this room that has had the same 20 million friends for the last gazillion years. I just want to point out, I just think this dynamic, this change, this shift in our circles is more normal than we think. And it makes me curious, like if it's normal, then why do we have so much tension sometimes in these moments? So I don't literally have a countdown on my friendships. I don't have some timer that runs with people's names on it, possibly. It's more that I've accepted that my friendships are going to kind of ebb and flow through seasons. And for me, when I accepted this, it actually kind of like stopped some of the tension and the drama that kind of pops up when we have what is a very natural and normal thing. I would imagine there are people that you were once so close to that you said you could never imagine them not being in your life. And for a whole variety of reasons, they might not be as close to you anymore. I would also imagine if you think about your circles right now, there are probably people that you could not have predicted 3 years that now are closer to you than anyone else. This is normal. But if it's normal, if it's natural, why do we struggle so much with it? You know, I also think that we think that all of our friends have to be in a certain relationship to us, that we don't kind of account for the fact that people ebb and flow throughout different layers, different kinds of circles in our lives. In the 1990s, Robin Dunbar, who's a British anthropologist and an evolutionary psychologist, actually studied how we hold on to relationships in our brain. He spent time observing how many people we can hold in our mind at one time. Because the reality is we all have cognitive limits and we have time issues, right? Like the reality is we can only hold so many people in our brain. We can only know what's going on with so many people at one given time. And there's only so many hours in a day to actually be connected to people and to invest in our relationships. So what he observed, I just want to share with you the different layers he observed that we can actually cognitively hold in any given moment. He says we usually start with about 5 intimate friends. Think about this in your own world, right? This doesn't include like your immediate nuclear family. Like it doesn't include like spouse and kids. Like just think beyond that. That you probably have around 5-ish, right? Some could have 4, some could have 7. Intimate friendships. People that know everything about you. And people that you know everything about. Research shows you're going to have about 5 of those. I think somewhere in like the range of like 3 to 7 people that you are that close with. And then you add to that, you can hold about 15 good friends in your mind. These are people that you know what's going on in their world, they know what's going on in yours, and you spend time with them regularly. They may not be the most inner circle in your world. Then you can add more to that. You have 50 friends, what he classified as just friends, people that, again, you know some of the context in their story, they know some context in yours, but you just don't maybe get regular time with them, but you still consider them friends. And then you can add to that 150 meaningful contacts. Meaning if I were to sit down with you and say, tell me all of your friends, this would be some of the ones you could maybe list, but maybe you don't know what happened to them last month, or maybe you don't even know what happened to them last year. Or you see them regularly, but you just don't have any conversation of depth. Think like a coworker or maybe an extended family. Our friendships come in these layers, but we're not really taught that. We're kind of get this mind that like just kind of going back to middle school or high school where we have to get locked in and we have to figure out how many people we can hold close as opposed to allowing people to ebb and flow through the layers of our life. And if Robin Dunbar is right, if this is a reality, and I just want you to think about it in your own life, like, do you think you have 3 to 7 really, really close friends? Around 15 good friends? We add 50. Like, think about it. If that makes sense in your life, there's someone else that's absolutely on par with that, actually. If we take a minute to study Jesus across the Gospels, he's kind of right on point with Robin's layers. Let's look at this. What we see with Jesus is he has 3 intimate friends. We see Peter, James, and John, and he spends specific time with them, has specific references with them, experiences specific things with just them. In fact, I think this is part of the reason that we see the disciples in the Gospels argue about who's the best, because they could tell that Jesus was closer to 3 of the 12, which I would consider his good friends. These are the people he did life with, he ate with, he served with, he laid down his life for. They knew him well, and he knew them well. And then if you read in the Gospels, it says that Jesus sent out 70 or 72 that he considered disciples to go and start telling the world about him. And then, at the end of his life, right after his death, actually, in the book of Acts, we read that there were 120 close followers gathered. So if Jesus lives his life, his friendship life in layers, not everybody's as close to the same people for all time, then Robin might be onto something. So what do we do with that? If reality is our friendships are going to ebb and flow through seasons, and it doesn't have to mean that you're bad at community or that you're bad at friendships or that that person is bad at being your friend. It may just mean something has shifted and changed. What do we do with that? Well, first, just recognize it. I mean, honestly, the reason I kind of joke and well, I'm not really joking about my timeline is because it just calms it down. It just goes, hey, life is going to do a lot of things to us, and things are going to ebb and flow and shift, and there's nothing wrong with that. So recognizing it and not fighting it and not taking on the assumption that that means that that person is not good at being a friend or that you cannot have close relationships. It may just mean that things are shifting and changing. But if things are going to shift and change, what's the priority? How do we manage that? I think the most valuable thing is that we continue to step into community. But there's some things I think that make community, friendships, or relationships stronger than not. And the first of those is shared experiences. There is something about going through things together that bring you closer, or being in like stages of life, or having had similar experiences. Shared experiences lay this foundation for us to have a common language and a common understanding. It can be through where we work together, or maybe you went to college with these people, or maybe you're just really into this one activity or this one hobby, and that's how you met some of your closest friends. Or it could be a life season. Other parents of teens or parents of toddlers, or maybe you're single, maybe you're navigating the seasons of divorce. When we have these things in common, we just understand each other better. And that can be with really fun, energetic stuff, and that can also be with difficult things. Sal and I have a friend of ours, a couple friend. They had a daughter, and after 4 or 5 years of no verbal communication, she was diagnosed with autism. And when they got that diagnosis, so much clicked for them. They got access to so many resources. They had so many people come alongside them, but they still felt isolated. And they began to realize that the longer, because certain social settings were still difficult for them, and the longer that they were isolated and avoided going places and didn't have a lot of connections with people, the more that it began to impact them as individuals and their marriage. In fact, at one point they shared with us, they said, at one point we thought about divorcing. But we realized it wasn't because we didn't want to be with each other. We thought maybe it was the potential to give each of us a break because we were so exhausted and overwhelmed by what we were experiencing with our daughter. And as they experienced that and they got overwhelmed, they finally, somehow, someone connected them with a few other parents of autistic children. And they said, we could breathe again because this group of people got it like no one else could get it. We didn't have to explain things because they already understood. We had a shared language. We understood. I didn't have to explain why that tantrum was happening or explain why that reaction was happening because they just understood. There is something about us. We are wired in a way that when we automatically know that we can share an experience or we have shared experience together, we can connect faster. I bet I could do that right now in this room. Try. Hey, ladies, perimenopause? With the, what's this, and the sweat, and the and then I'm cried, then I'm anybody? No show of hands on that. You don't do that one. All right, anybody? Or how about this one? Maybe this could be a shared experience some of us have. Hey, anybody have a late teen or early young adult child, and you're giving them ideas on how to grow up, but you are dumb. You didn't know it, but they're letting you know your ideas are so stupid. Anybody else feel that? Or what about this one? I really hope I'm not alone in this one. Anybody already exhausted by UT fans? Anybody? See, anybody just already over it? Oh, we got ranked that we might be number 1. Let's all cheer all day long, right? Anybody already tired? Right? This is how shared experience works. Some of you want to hang out with me now, don't you? Some of you will never hang out with me. That's fine. But when you start, it's 5 to 7 years, just so you know. You got a clock going. It might be lighthearted, silly things that connect us, or it could be serious things. I think of Ruth and Naomi from the book of Ruth in the Old Testament. It is a mother-in-law and daughter-in-law. If you ever thought you could connect with someone, that's interesting, right? And they experienced death, grief, fear, multiple moves, and it created this commitment and this loyalty to one another because of what they navigated together. And even when we don't actually go through the exact same thing together, we can come alongside people during seasons. Shared experiences help us connect quicker, help us go further and deeper when we understand that we're in a similar place, or we like similar things, or we dislike similar things. The other thing that I think enhances our connection with other people is just shared trust. Now, we often think that trust is I just trust this person or I don't. But actually, trust is built. Trust is something that grows over time. In fact, I think you almost have to kind of fall down together, skin your knees, upset each other, have a little bit of tension, and then you build your trust. You know, it's funny, I can remember, like, and this is always awkward moments, right? And we don't usually push through these, which is why I think we usually get in a friendship circle, or we get in community, or we try a group, or we do something and it just doesn't click, so we just write it off instead of like work to build trust. About a year and a half ago, I was actually leading a women's community group here at North Point, and about a year and a half into starting the group, actually, a woman just stopped attending, and she just didn't come back. And a friend of hers actually nudged me one time after group and said, hey, like, you might want to take so-and-so to lunch. I think there's something going on. And I was like, oh, of course, yes. So I reached out and said, hey, can we meet up for lunch? And so we met at Toasted Yolk, R.I.P., Toasted Yolk. But like, we met up there, and I was talking to her, and she shared with me why she stopped coming to group. It was because of something I said. And I said it. It wasn't really the way she heard it, wasn't really the way that my heart meant it, but because I did not communicate with clarity, and I did not go direct, and I just messed up. And I just looked at her, and she had, that mistake had allowed her to write a story about how I felt about her and her family. And it wasn't the truth. But I had to apologize, I had to own it, and it was an awkward conversation, and now we're closer. I mean, like, but we don't push through those moments often, do we? Which is so funny when you think about it, considering it's the church. Like, really, we should be so good at doing this. But oftentimes we get in community or we get in a circle and something happens and we don't know what to do with it, and we don't work to build trust. We just move on. And we blame them or we blame us, and we isolate or we find a new group instead of looking at what it could look like to build trust. There's this moment that's probably one of my favorite moments actually across the entire Bible. It's this moment when Paul, who's a writer of most of the New Testament, and Barnabas, another leader in the early church, they have this issue. It's funny because these two guys worked together, they traveled together, they shared all the good news about Jesus together. In fact, Barnabas is one of the ones who comes and kind of defends Paul when people are curious about what it looks like for him to step into this whole Jesus thing. And in Acts, Luke tells us that they have what Luke describes as a sharp disagreement. A sharp disagreement. You ever had a sharp disagreement? You ever had a moment that was just so hurtful or just so miscommunicated or just such a miss that you just were done? Yeah, it's funny. Their issue was this guy named John Mark. Barnabas was a big fan of John Mark, and he really wanted to see John Mark like go further in ministry, and Paul really wasn't a fan of John Mark. So this disagreement to work with John Mark or not actually caused them to part ways. But if you keep reading, they actually figured it out and actually connected back together, and then eventually Paul works with John Mark. But they had to work through a thing. You have to build trust. And you don't build it because you never struggle with each other. Trust is built because we have an issue, but we work through the issue because we're different people with different experiences and different needs, but we decide to try and work through those things for the benefit of each other. It's also just what maturity and growing up looks like on the other side. So where have you written off a situation or stepped out of community or given up on stepping into community because of sharp disagreements, because of hurt, because trust was broken by you or someone else? And I will say, I think that we are more willing to navigate our shared experiences and share those and also work to rebuild trust and fight for a relationship when we're on a shared mission. Now, I know you're going to think, okay, Jen's going to tell me, the shared mission. Like, okay, Jen, we're at church, so we're going to go to church and we're going to talk about how the shared mission is, yes, if we're on mission for Jesus, and that's great. It's because it's true. There's something that brings us together when we have a cause that's just bigger than ourselves, that's actually outside even those, it's more important than those shared experiences, and even more important than the trust that is built and even broken. When we step toward each other because we have something that bigger that unites us. I can remember being in grad school, and we were having this conversation about the future of the local church. And one of my classmates was saying, he's like, honestly, I just don't think the local church will exist much longer. He said, I think we will go to the bar and find just as much church there as anywhere else. He said, I can go to a bar, I can sit down with the same people. I think Cheers, if you picture that in your head. Cheers was a show. I feel like I have one of these caveats every single time, right? It's like, these are students. Have you guys ever watched Cheers? No, okay, cool. But there's this community that happens at this bar, right? So like you go to the bar, it's the same people. The bartender knows your life. You shared your story with the bartender. Your other barmates have. And I listened to this story and I kind of got it. I understood what he was saying. I absolutely love like a good, deep conversation over a bottle of wine. Absolutely. But I asked a question. I said, but like what happens like later? Like if you have a tough time, does the bartender call you the next day to check on your marriage? Like what happens? Does the guy at the other end of the bar actually, like that month that rent was just really hard to make, do they actually like chip in and help you out there? And if the bar stuff is so good, if the bar goodness is so real, do we just keep it in the bar? Like do we just stay there? Or do we ever go anywhere and do anything about the stuff that we're talking about? You know, I had a friend who I attended church with, and he did not consider himself a Christian. He considered himself an atheist, but he knew that being in community was valuable for like just as a human for health. It's healthy to have relationships. He understood that. So he was trying out our church, and he went for several years just trying to connect with people, but was very honest about how he felt. And eventually, it was kind of hard for him to kind of keep tracking with us. Because eventually, he was like, I just can't keep talking about this stuff that I'm not sure what I think or I believe. And so he actually went and tried to find some other circles of community. And so he went, and then about a year later, he came back. And he said, you know, I found some really great meetups and like groups that have conversation. And he goes, but I'm sitting there like month after month. And he's like, and we're just talking about all the things we don't like in the world. And we're having good conversations and we're being honest with each other, but like, we're not doing anything. He's like, we weren't like going to help anybody out. We weren't really even caring for each other in that way. We weren't stepping out into the world and making a difference. We were just sitting around and talking. And I said, you know, I get it. I said, I'll be honest. I said, maybe someone someday will find a way to create consistent and healthy community. Maybe someone will. But for all its flaws, the church is just really good at it. We've just been doing it a really long time, and we've gotten really good at it. Now, don't get me wrong. The church is responsible for all sorts of crazy stuff. We've done a lot of damage. There have been moments of crazy teaching. There's been abuse. There's been so much. But can I just also say that local churches have done some really beautiful things. Like we're the reason that public schools exist. We're the reason that hospitals even really exist. We are the genesis for countless organizations that are literally changing and shaping the world. And one of the things we do really well is structure ways that you can get connected with other people. Because we know that when you're on shared mission, when you come together in a group to learn about something or to step into a space because you just want your marriage to be better, or you're looking for a shared experience, you don't want to be the only one that's navigating this, the church is just really good at setting this up. And I think about Jesus and his disciples when I think about shared mission. They did everything together for 3 years. Side note, that's shorter than my 5 to 7 years. So those of you that are in your tail end of the 5 to 7 years, you're welcome. I'm stretching it. I could just say, look, Jesus only did 3. I'm only going to do 3. He had this relationship with them where they shared everything. And it's toward the end of his ministry with them where he says this, and I just want to read this together. He shares this with them when he's talking to them about God's love and the big thing that he's calling them into. He says, I'm no longer calling you servants because servants don't understand what their master is thinking and planning. No, I've named you friends because I've let you in on everything I've heard from the Father. He does this thing where he's not, hey, we can be distant, we can just be acquaintances, but I'm actually going to bring you in closer. I've named you friends because I've let you in on everything. If you study Jesus, like you will quickly find that he didn't just preach about friendships, relationships, community. He lived it. He did his life in circles, in all of the layers of the circles. He did life with people. He didn't just preach about it. It was a core part of his mission. It was how he did everything, was in connection and relationship within the context of community. Because he understood that, man, we can have some shared experiences together and we can build trust, but when we're on shared mission, we can change the world. So I want to ask you the same question I asked you to start. how many friends do you have? If you took an honest look at your life right now in context of like relationships, if we know that we've got different circles and different layers of friendship in our life, where are you? Do you have any close people that know you and that you know? Do you have a good group of people around you? Are you leaning into relationships with people that are in the like season of life you are or struggling in the same area you are? Who do you have around you? Because not only for what you might get out of that, but what you might actually be able to give to others as well. Now, there's so many opportunities, especially here at North Point, to jump into these. And there's so many reasons why. I think shared mission, shared experience, shared trust, these are just kind of one of the three of the things that I think are valuable when it comes to stepping into community. But I really do think, honestly, I could talk to you about it all morning, all day, all week. But I think sometimes you just need to hear it from someone else who's kind of walked out that story, stepping in and out of different circles and the impact that made. So I want to watch this story together.
So I come from a family of a single mom, born and raised in Missouri, and I have a younger brother who's bigger, faster, stronger than me in many ways, but
I am from Missouri as well. Literally only 2 blocks away from you. We had no idea. I have 3 sisters and I'm the middle child, so that was fun growing up.
At the end of my high school career, I still was involved with my church. I was still involved with like the youth band and playing on a Wednesday night. I actually played drums at the time. And so Kinsey graduated a year after me.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to try out another church, which just so happened to be where Christopher was. And I just remember him being like, I'm so sorry I haven't said anything sooner to you, but you have completely captured my heart. And I was like, whoa.
So while all that was happening, I worked for Chick-fil-A for a long time, actually in our hometown. Mm-hmm. And my operator at the time, he came in the office one day and asked us, hey, Chris, are you interested in wanting to move to Austin to help me open a Chick-fil-A?
And we were newly married, really only maybe 2 years. And I just really felt like this was his launching moment. I was like, there was no doubt in my mind that we were gonna do this. I came here hesitantly, though, because I was like, I'm giving it 1 year. Like, and for sure, if babies happen, like, we're out, like, we're gone.
We got out of our comfort zone, and life kind of rubber hit the road.
Yeah, the idea of community for us was important. We just didn't know how we were gonna establish that here. We found North Point at just the perfect timing because we didn't have community, we needed community, and we got plugged in.
We didn't want somebody to just go to a bar and watch a game with. We really wanted somebody to lean in, to grow with us, to win together. And I think when we started having our kids, and we had the couples that were around us when we started, that really is what helped turn the page. We had an incredible couple on the other side of us that was in a group previously, and they were so critical in encouraging us to join Marriage Matters, a group at North Point that essentially takes a deep dive into not only your relationship with one another, with your spouse, but also inwardly about your identity, who you are, how you communicate, how you receive love, how you love one another.
Diving into Marriage Matters was a season for us where I personally felt like our marriage was maybe struggling a little. I feel like through that experience, we're able to be authentically ourselves. Where I feel like I may not have had a space where I could feel safe enough to say what was on my heart, say what was on my mind without feeling judgment. But I feel like these people really came around me and loved me authentically for just as I was.
Once we all graduated that short class, we went and decided to just create a new group. And we call it Marriage Still Matters.
Marriage Still Matters, with the same OGs.
And so with those same people, we are continuing doing life together. And I think over the past 2 years, that is what I feel like I would define as community now. In our seasons of life, time after time, in our seasons at North Point, we've seen where when we've been vulnerable, it kind of brings the realness to the room.
Yeah. The more you just kind of step out in curiosity, maybe it's not even faith, but maybe it's just curiosity, and allow others to come around you, like there you'll find your peace. I think we all want to have a place to feel like we belong, and groups allow you to have that space where you can belong.
You know, we relocated from Nashville 6-7 years ago. I actually didn't mean to do that. If you know what I just did. And I can so relate to, sorry, I'm regroup. I can so relate to their story. We needed to step into a community group to find a new circle because it was a new chapter for us. And a few years later, we would be in a really, really tough season in our marriage, and we needed to step into Marriage Matters. Every time we've stepped into a new space, a new circle, added a new layer to our relationships, allowed relationships to kind of ebb and flow and shift, we've been so much better for it. And when we hold it open-handed, when we go into it going, okay, Jordan a few years ago, or no, actually just this past year, he gave the similar message when he encouraged us to join groups back in January. And he had a bottom line because he was talking about how literally there is a Surgeon General's warning about isolation in our culture. That being alone is actually physiologically damaging our body. And he had a line that has stuck with me forever. He said, "Loneliness kills. Don't die. Get in a group." I'm going to add to that here in a minute. But it would have been so easy in different seasons of my life and my marriage and my parenting to just isolate. Whether it's because groups were a little hard at one point or relationships were a little awkward for me or it was new or whatever. But when I just hold it open-handed and I just go, I'm going to lean in. I'm going to find some shared experiences. I'm going to develop and build some shared trust. And I'm going to consider shared mission. It's funny, and it doesn't always go in that order. Some people, we really want to be a place where you can belong before you believe. We have groups that are even about that, right? That some people actually build trust first. In fact, I think most of us make a decision to follow Jesus, not as much intellectually, more because we come alongside a trusted Christian, and it does something in our own story. So we're going to do this. I told you, at the end of every week, we're going to have like a together moment. So I want everybody to take out their phones. And there's a QR code on the chair in front of you. Now, if you've been with us for a while, you're familiar. There's also one on the screen. You're familiar with this opportunity, but we have something for you too. So whether you've been in a group forever or you don't, even if you're like, okay, yeah, I'm not interested in a group, that's fine. Take out your phone, scan that QR code. We have something that we're asking everyone to do. I can awkwardly stand up here until I can tell that everybody's on their phone. Awkward for everybody. All right, you're going to scan that QR code, and it's going to take you to a link. And this page is going to come up. Now, this is part of our conversation. Again, if you're like, look, Jen, I've got all my layers. I've got my close 3 to 5 people. I've got my 12 to 15. I've got my 50, my 150. That's fine. There's still something for you. Still want you to go to the form, and you can fill that out. But if you've never considered stepping into a new circle, this is an opportunity. Again, like I said earlier, the church, for all of its flaws, we are really good at this. So what do you have to lose if you just consider stepping into this? I'm going to talk you through this form. Even if you're unsure about what groups, you're going to be able to go check out what groups we have available. We have groups literally, I feel like when I went to the shopping page, actually just yesterday, there's a group shopping page. I felt like I was on Amazon. There was like something for everyone, right? If you're just considering what it looks like to even consider this God, this Jesus thing, this Bible stuff, we have how not to read the Bible. We have Starting Point where genuinely any question you can bring to the table is welcome. We have group for couples, groups for young families. We even specifically have a group for the parents of dads of teens, which is a very nuanced group, but come on, if you get it, you get it. I'm waiting for the moms of teens group. We have Marriage Matters, which is a short-term intensive group that literally will transform your relationship. Even if you're not in a season of struggle right now, that's an opportunity for growth. So I'm going to give you a couple minutes. Actually, I want you to fill this out. Let us know, even if you're in a group, again, something for you. If you're not interested, you can even let us know that. So I'm going to give you about a minute or two to fill out that form, and then we'll wrap up. Now, groups will be open the next couple of weeks. When groups do fill up, they will close, so fill out that interest form. At the very last of that pages, can we put that one image up where you'll see you can join, request to join, right there at the bottom of the different groups. And someone will contact you. Someone from the groups team will reach out. You'll hear back from us. I really do want to encourage you to spend. I'm going to build on Jordan's bottom line, right? I genuinely do believe we are better when we step into community, when we step into relationships. So loneliness kills. Don't die. Get in a group. But don't worry. Friendships don't last forever. So, or they might. You might start something here at North Point that changes the trajectory of your life. And you might find those people. It's not a guarantee when you step into a group. Oftentimes we come into a group because we want to learn and grow together. It doesn't mean we're going to walk out with our best friends, but you just might too. Let me pray for us. Father, you are aware of every layer in our life. You are aware of our close 5 people. You know the 12 that we have around us. You know the 50, the 150. You are so aware of where we are in terms of relationships. Lord, you know where we struggle with friendships, where we can often bring in a past hurt, or we feel so isolated like we're the only one that's gone through something. But what if that's not actually true? Wherever we need to lean in, wherever we need to share some experiences so we might be a place where someone realizes that they aren't alone. Lord, wherever we can build trust. And Lord, maybe that even grows into a shared mission together. God, that we could do something that is bigger than ourselves through our connection with each other. I just pray for our group season this year. I know that you already know who's going to be in what groups, when, where, how. And we just trust you with all that. We're just excited to see what you're going to do as we are for each other and for our community together. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you, guys. Take that form with you.